Alright, ready to hang this. I always cut the kerf first on the table saw, because if you fit it and then cut the kerf, the cut in the middle can actually offset the head one way or the other because it's taking off material from the front edge, which is usually what dictates where the angle is. But this is DI, so the angle is more determined by this flat back, how flat that is. Because if this is not flat, if it's a little bit cocked like that, it's going to send the whole head that way. I've already chamfered the eye, as I do on all mine, so that they can last longer. In this Helco Iltis pattern. Let's get her hung. And I transferred the eye shape by putting the painter's tape on the bottom, drawing the shape of the eye, and then cutting it out with scissors and placing it. That is the best method I have found for transferring the eye shape. So let's get to shaping. What I'm doing there, as you can see, I've angled the top so that when I hit it with the hammer, if I hit on the edge here, it won't break out, because I've got this handle about 75% done. And I don't want to spoil all that work by breaking off a piece of the swell, so I angle that. I do the same thing whenever I laminate or inlay the swells, because it can break off, because usually the wood is a little bit different, either harder or softer. But yeah, you can still do it with ash or hickory or anything. You can totally break the swell off. Just it completely, ever since I started doing this, I've never broken a swell. So. Now, if you look at it, it's getting more level, but the front is dipping down like this. So, and that means that it's too loose here, and it's hitting back in the back half of the axe. That's how you can either open or close the bit to your desires. Right now it's a little bit too close, so I need to open up that bit by bringing the sinking the back down, which will level out the bit. So do that, you only take off from the back half here where it's hitting. Check it out, notate any gaps that I may see. Right here is a gap, so I know not to take off any space, anything from there. Try it again. Now that's the kind of fit you want, where it's hitting all the way around. Even after I chamfered the edges, it's still catching, which is a good sign. It means I got a good tight fit. there we have it. There it is. Perfectly straight. Look at that. Beautiful. It's not off on the Z. It's perfectly lined up. That's another good thing about cutting the kerf first, because as you hang it, as long as you get a really good straight center cut here, and I do it on the table saw to ensure that, you can line up your bit with the kerf. So you can look down the top like this and see that the bit is in line with the kerf, and that will help guide you because that's perfectly centered straight on the handle. So you know if the bit is lined up with this, then you're square. Not too bad. Now I got a little bit of a gap up front here. I don't think the wedge will be able to fill all that. It might, but I might have teeny tiny little gaps, so I'm gonna have to do a cross wedge, and I'll show you how to do that. Now, to do a cross wedge, what I want to do is I want to put another wedge right here. Okay, well, not quite that far forward. I like to put it in the back half . There we go. Now I know that my regular kerf goes down to about here. That's how far this kerf goes down. I want it to go down as far as the regular kerf, and I want to drill a hole right there. So I'm going to do that at the bottom of my kerf slot. So I'm going to draw a line down, and now I'm going to cut this on the bandsaw, but I'm not going to cut just a straight line. I'm actually going to cut a little V, because it will just make it easier, because you want the wedge slot for the cross wedges. I like them to actually be a V. You don't have to do that, but it's a little bit easier when you do, because then the wedge goes in it easier and it's not forcing it apart as much to break it. That way, as you go down, unless you're using like a shim, basically a teeny, like just a sliver, which if you're doing that, then it's not even doing its purpose. But I do a V because I get better results, and it will help spread it evenly as the wedge goes down, and you end up with a wedge here that's as thick as the wedge here. Because if I do just a regular cut here, and I go to bang in my cross wedge, it's not going to expand it as much as this wedge, and I'm going to have tiny cross wedges and a fat single wedge. I want them to match. So this is how I'm going to do that. I'm going to cut that on the bandsaw, and then I'm going to go to the next step and show you. Alright, now I've got those cut. I'm going to drill my hole. Always drill a hole at the bottom, as that'll help it when it expands. It will keep it from cracking, because you don't want it to crack. So we're going to drill a hole very carefully, very slowly, because I've done it too fast before, drilling a hole here, and it's cracked all the way down while drilling the hole that's supposed to prevent the cracking. So do it very slow, nice and easy. Alright, hole drilled, ready for the cross wedges. Now for cross wedge selection, I always use a really hard wood, because if you use too soft of a wood, if you use a wood that's softer than the ash, when you go to pound it in, it won't expand it, because it's not strong enough to actually expand the ash laterally. It will just end up filling the hole rather than actually doing its job of expansion. So you need a nice, really hard wood for that. Not sure yet what I'm going to use, but I'm going to go through my wedges, and we're going to pick out something nice. Alright, so I've selected a zebra wood wedge and ebony cross wedges. Now when you're setting your cross wedges and you're fitting them up, you want them to be as wide as the distance from the kerf to the outside. See, you want them to be that wide, because if they're too wide, when you bang them down, this wedge won't be able to expand it because it's hitting this. See, because you got to hit these in just a little bit. You tap them all kind of in a circle, and as these go down, if they're wider than this piece here, then this wedge just won't expand. It'll get locked up because it'll be hitting that. So, and these wedges are really, really thick, so I'm gonna slim those down a little bit, and so I can bang these in. Now it's important to note where your wedges will bottom out at, because normally I will take these and I will make sure that they are shorter than the kerf they are going in. That way they cannot bottom out and crack it. So I'm gonna thin these down a little bit, and I'm gonna trim this top a little bit because it's a little too tall right now. Because if you leave this too high, the part of the tongue, if you leave it sticking out the top too high, when you go to pound your wedge in, it'll fillet the top open. So we don't want to do that. So we'll work on this a little bit and then we'll continue. Yeah, solid hang. They're not looking nice.